Craig, just one sec. We'll start in 4 minutes, yeah?
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
All right, cool. Hey, Nino, what's up?
Just checking my mic real quick. Video. Everything good? You guys see me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, looking nice and clear.
Easy
Okay.
peasy.
So for those who are having audio issues or data issues, please feel free to watch the YouTube version. It's gonna be lighter, and you'll definitely catch up with the YouTube version later, okay? But it's important that you are fully focused here today because Craig is gonna drop some knowledge that you will never ever hear anywhere else. And for real, I'm not hyping you. You guys think I'm a hype man, but for real, I ain't hyping you. Just give me 1 second, I'll be back.
Lot to live up to then.
Okay. Hey, hola, Blondie, Omiale, welcome, 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 guys. Abba, welcome. Beatrice, if you're in, just raise your hand up. I just want to confirm you're in here. I just seen your message. I'm trying to multitask. All right, thank you, Beatrice. My multitasking is just horrible.
No,
Hey,
no worries.
Yusuf.
I found it.
Hey, Kish. What's
Oh,
up, Kish?
yeah, man.
Yo, Kish, I didn't know you're coming in today, bro. Hey, Mercy. Okay, Craig, it's literally 1 minute to 7 or 5. We have
Yep,
we have people, we have enough quorum in the room. Okay. Those who
cool.
don't get the early bits, they will definitely follow up on the recording. But I think for those who are in here and they're ready, they can type in a quick R. Just drop in an R if you're good to go. But if you want to wait for a few more people, you can type a W. So you guys choose. If you're good to go, R, and let's go. The train to Babylon don't wait for nobody, you know what I mean? Once the trumpet goes, it goes.
Yeah, it looks like the train's left.
The train's left. Nobody wanna wait for nobody else. Okay, Craig, come on, let's do this. Oh, and Craig, hold up. Before you start, let me introduce you. Kish is one of the tutors as well. He's from Blockchain Sensei, and he's
Yep,
doing he did the Monday session. He's gonna do the Thursday session as well. So he's one of the partners. And Nino is on the call as well. Nino is fifth work. I think we met Nino in London during the
yep.
LBC. Yeah. So come on, Craig, it's all you now. Let's go. And guys in class, if you have a question, because I think Craig is going to go a bit technical here today. If you have a question, don't get lost. Raise your hand or power up your mic and just ask before we proceed. Because today we are going in deep. It's a proper deep dive today. All right,
Oh, I
Craig.
was actually going to take it at the higher level and not going into the nuts and bolts, just because it's an architecture thing and not a let's get into the script components of Bitcoin and everything. So
All right,
anyway,
call you. Yeah.
it is there's still a lot of technical detail here. So let me share my screen and
All right, cool.
hopefully, which one do we want to do? The desktop too, I think. Yeah, and if I pull up this guy. I've got a few slides. I've got quite a few slides. So it might be death by slides, but hopefully not. There's a lot of humour in it and a lot of thinking to do as well. So let me just
Oh,
share.
and Craig, one thing, yeah.
Yeah,
In 35 minutes, we have some of our Muslim brothers here who need to take a break. So in 35 minutes, we'll go on a break, but we can still just be in the room for those who want to stay and ask you questions. And then we are going to have our guest lab later on, which is still going to be you, Nino, and Evan. And if Kish
yeah,
is still going to be here, he could also chime in because he also understands this to an OG level as well. So back to you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just tell me what are you seeing just now? Are you seeing the slide or are you seeing
Yeah, I'm
the
seeing the ELA slides and yourself.
magic? Magic.
Cool. All right, cool.
Okay, so um, we're actually on slide two, but never mind. Um, So a little bit about ELAS. We were established about 4.5 years ago, nearly 5 years ago now. And it came about through a meeting of the minds, effectively. I met Brendan Lee, who heads up or did head up the Bitcoin Association's education department. And I understood straight away that this is a man to learn from. Um, so I joined ELAS to learn from the best, and I've certainly learned a lot in that time. We specialise in the MetaNet protocol that I'm going to talk about today, um, and tokenization, which is a big part of our business and what we deliver to customers. Um, let's see how do I actually advance the slide. There we go. This is all new to me as well. Like I'm normally behind the screen doing all the code, so presenting is not my forte. So I bear that in mind and be gentle. So this is a kind of ELAS slide about a few of the things that we do. One of the concepts is private ledgers on the public blockchain. And it's actually the MetaNet that allows us to accomplish that by carving off an area within the blockchain that is private to our specific transactions. And I'll go into a little bit further about what the MetaNet actually is and the protocol. We're going to skirt over some of the details about the protocol because it's kind of boring and everybody. I'll just bore you. Um, but we do a lot. We build essentially solutions for customers. For example, AMLA Gold was a solution that we delivered to a startup who wanted to tokenize vaulted gold. And so we set up a solution that, again, used the MetaNet as a way of modeling the actual physical vaults and tokenizing the gold, bullying it into uh, fungible tokens that could be spent and redeemed and swapped. So that's an example of kind of how we're using tokenization and the MetaNet to accomplish a solution. Manufact is a fraud proofing solution for luxury goods. This has been trialed on cigars and wine, expensive wine. And effectively, again, uses the MetaNet protocol to record records of when tamper-proof seals have been broken. And so we can see that a good is not legitimate if these tamper-proof goods do not report the correct information in the correct jurisdictions. So it also does things like ensuring that your goods are sent to the correct area. So you can see if any goods have ended up in Bolivia when they were meant to be in Ecuador, for example. Well, double slide. Buzzmint is started off as an NFT platform where they were just minting NFTs. Then it became more of a digital rights management and certification platform for for large magazines like Vogue, but Vogue's not actually signed up. I must point that out. That was a demonstration page. But what Buzzmint have now done is they've moved into the ticketing and vouchering area, and I'm going to demonstrate a solution later on which demonstrates what Buzzmint are doing now. They're doing some good work for the Welsh Government to try and attract footfall back into the high street, because a lot of that footfall has been lost to the likes of Amazon. We've also delivered solutions in the logistics space. So again, a company called Two-Way hooked up with us in order to deliver some job management functionality. And again, the MetaNet's used to record the job spec and record when people have signed up to actually deliver on that job. And again, that kind of that allows them to streamline their logistics operations and know exactly what's happening at a certain point in time. And we're also working with Tokenovate, and Tokenovate are doing some great stuff in the financial space with the ability to tokenize bonds and track trades over their life cycle, and ensuring that there's a single view of the trade state, which has been historically quite a difficult thing to achieve given the amount of parties that are involved in managing trade state. So Tokenovate are doing some really cool stuff. A little bit about me. Now we've done the ELAS bit. I'm a father of three boys.
Craig,
I'm a one-wheeler.
your mic is kind of muffling up. And
Oh,
everybody
sorry.
else, Craig, listen, allow me to mute
Yeah.
everybody and then you put yourself back on, because there's some people who have their mics on, all right?
Yeah, no worries. I don't actually know how to switch myself off and on.
Okay, Craig, now turn on your mic, please. It's down there. No, let me try and mute you. Can you see? I'm requesting you to unmute.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I'm a one-wheeler, which is this bizarre object on the right. That's my main mode of transport at the moment. I kind of don't have a car anymore. I just get about on this one-wheeled skateboard in public transport. I'm a photographer. I love photography. I do a lot of photography out in the wild, out in nature. I love taking photos of my kids and family and printing them out. That's the most important thing. A photograph's not a photograph unless you've actually got the physical evidence of it. I love synthesizers. I create a lot of music in my spare time. And I was a consultant / architect way before I ever got involved in this Bitcoin stuff. So this stuff came late. So what's a solutions architect do? And I'm not going to read off the slides, but well, I really am. We gather and understand business requirements. We understand the technological fit for specific technologies. We advise on how best to deploy those technologies. We understand how to architect software components, the hardware components to meet business needs. And we also seem to do a hell of a lot of coding, which is what I'm doing most of the time these days. What's a Bitcoin solution architect do? It's basically all of the same, except we understand the Bitcoin protocol, other associated protocols, overlay networks, transactions, SIG hashes, all of that fun stuff that nobody else really delves into. We kind of do our best to understand how that fits into solutions. And we also help communicate complex problems in a way that people understand without necessarily getting into the nuts and bolts of things. And we bore people at parties. That's a given. As soon as somebody talks about Bitcoin, that's it. And so what I wanted to talk about today is the power of abstractions and why thinking like an architect means thinking in abstract terms effectively. Abstractions are the things that make the difficult concepts really easy to understand. For example, the screenshot I've got here is a classic desktop. It was stolen from Xerox by Apple and Microsoft. And they've run away with that concept now and created $1 million businesses or $1 billion businesses. But concepts like files, folders, these are overlaid on top of really difficult to understand principles in computer science that um, the average user doesn't need to understand. So all of that complexity is hidden away underneath these simple concepts. And the thing that we're going to talk about today is the metanet. And in Bitcoin, it allows us to apply some of these abstract thinking ideas to Bitcoin and to build structure on top of Bitcoin that allows us to impart meaning. Okay, so this is us getting into the metanet protocol and the power of abstraction. So this is a kind of boring explanation of what the metanet protocol actually is. It's a protocol, it's a layer 2 protocol that sits on top of Bitcoin, but it's also present at the transaction layer of Bitcoin. So there's a database layer to it and there's a transaction layer to it. And it specifies two structures, metanet nodes, and these are kind of transactions that may or may not contain some data and may or may not have some specific signing requirements on them. And they are linked to other metanet nodes via signatures. And I'll go on to explain exactly how this works. But needless to say, if you want to create a metanet transaction, you have to conform to the specification. And the specification is laid out in various documents that I've linked to later on.
Greg, I have a question. Sorry, guys,
Yeah.
I'm the guy always talking in the movies, but I have a question. Do you want to take it slightly back and position it as to how it sits alongside the Bitcoin protocol in itself, like the architecture from that perspective, and then you kind of weave it into the Metanet protocol?
Yeah, so basically all the metanet protocol is a specific kind of transaction and the linkages between them. So it actually sits directly on top of the Bitcoin network, but we have a separate layer on top of that, which is a database which tracks the information that's held within the records on the Bitcoin network. So the transactions themselves are stored. The signature information isn't stored, but we can get that from the transaction. So we store these transactions in a database, but we might have some other contextual information which describes that transaction a little bit fuller, is probably the best word. So it's easier to see once I move on because I've got some, what I was getting through was this kind of turgid stuff, which is hard to understand and hard to comprehend. And then I'm going to get to a kind of easier explanation of what this stuff actually means in reality and what we can do with it, which I think is the important thing. And I think that's what we should be taking away. It's not the how do we go about creating the metanet that we need to understand. It's the what's possible with the metanet, I think. So the metanet basically allows us to impose structure on top of Bitcoin where there was none. And why do we want to impose structure on top of Bitcoin? It's to impart meaning and context, things that humans can reason about. It helps us group and organize data in a way that, again, we can reason about. And it allows us to control and constrict access to certain parts of to certain parts of the Bitcoin ledger that we have said is ours and we can grow. So I'll explain that as well. So abstractions in that action, we use the metanet in a variety of situations to, model out things like brands, businesses, token issuance certificates, financial entities, trade records. It's used everywhere. Like you can create an abstraction on top of anything. So it's a very flexible protocol that allows us to apply it to create whatever kind of organization or structure we need to fit the solution that we're wanting to build. And so this is a nice friendly slide, which I think helps illustrate what it is. And so at the top level, we would have a metanet root node. And effectively, it's a little bit of data that we output to, and this data could be anything at the moment. I'm just saying this is the Acme root node. So this is, if you can imagine, a corporation that's establishing a ledger, and they want to control the entries in that ledger. So they establish a root node, and that root node has some signing conditions. And here we've got 5 people indicated by the 5 circles with the people inside them, and a signing threshold of 2. So what we're saying here is that this node is controlled by 5 people, but we only need 2 people to sign off on any child nodes. And so moving on to the next slide, the idea is that we can extend the metanet and create a graph which models out our business or whatever it is we're trying to model. So in this instance, we've got an Acme root node, and I've changed the signing threshold in this one to 5 of 8. So, and then we've got an HR node. Oh, let me go back one, sorry. We've got an HR node. We've got a sales node, and we've got a logistics node, and they've each got kind of slightly different thresholds. So what happens here is within your root nodes, which is a transaction on chain, if you remember, if somebody wants to create an HR node, what they're going to do is propose a transaction to us. And again, we would build a UI that says, I want to create a new, whatever it is. In this case, it's an area, let's say, of the business. I want to create a new area of the business. And that would capture the information required, such as the signatories that are going to be in control of this new area, and any of the data that's held in the nodes. At the moment, it just says Acme Corp, 13
Greg,
Warner Brothers Studios. Yes?
Craig, sorry, are you able to see the questions?
No.
There's a question that is, sorry to ruin your train of thought.
No,
Sorry.
that's fine. That's fine.
There's a question from Obakeng. Hi, Craig. What challenges
Yeah.
does Metanet protocol face building on top of the Bitcoin layer? Because it's a bit confusing for me, as I thought Bitcoin was intentionally built not to have anything else built on top of it besides transacting with it.
Yeah. This is the confusing part. So there's a disagreement currently in the community about what Bitcoin is. Now, the BTC people, who are the loudest voice in the room, essentially, are saying that it's just meant to be digital gold. It's none of those things. Bitcoin is a very, very in-depth and comprehensive protocol that allows you to do way more than has been revealed publicly so far. Although that's changing now, we're getting a lot of information's getting out, and you can do a hell of a lot with it. But when I talk about Bitcoin, what I really mean is the original Bitcoin protocol. So before it was changed, before opcodes were removed, we had a fully functioning script engine, which was Turing complete. That all changed. The BTC guys took out a lot of things, thinking it was a safety issue. It wasn't really a safety issue, but they had limited understanding about it. Anyway, a lot of that stuff has been restored now into what we call BSV, what I call Bitcoin, because it really is the original protocol that's been restored back to its original state. And on top of that protocol, which is more than capable of doing 1 million plus transactions a second, we can build some very interesting solutions. And on top of the Bitcoin network, we can also build these metanet layers, which provide structure. And so it's a very abstract concept. I get that. But I should be able to demonstrate kind of some of the benefits of it when we get to our demo. So what we're saying here is with your root nodes, we've got a signing condition of 5 of 8. Now, in order to create any of these subnodes, 5 of the 8 members of the root node must sign off on the creation of that new transaction. So essentially, they're just signing the transaction and saying, "Yeah, I agree, I agree, I agree, I agree." And once we've got enough to meet the threshold of signatures required, we can then broadcast the transaction, and it'll create on chain a new node, which is just a special Bitcoin transaction. It's formatted with some special codes.
Sorry,
And within that new
sorry,
nodes, we
Craig.
can formulate.
Craig, can you hear me? There's somebody with their mic on. Could you just mute, please? Because
Yes.
some of us are trying, some of your colleagues in class are trying to follow what Craig is saying. And then there are people in the chat who are like, Craig, they're saying it's a bit difficult for them to follow. So if you're finding it difficult to follow, why don't you raise your hand up and ask the exact question instead of distracting fellow students on the chat? Like, let's be mindful of Craig's time as well and all the other students who are in as well. So if you want to understand something, ask the question, because this is the area you want to understand, and it's being given to you by the actual expert who does this thing from way back. So it's only reasonable and polite for you to raise your hand and ask something. And if it's not quite as what you saw in the courses that you did with fifth work, this is like another level of it. Like, this is the architectural aspect of it. So just ask based on what you thought it was, and then get an understanding of what it actually is. Okay? So it's only polite to be mindful.
Yeah. Yeah, just if there's any questions, honestly, I'll take any. Hopefully have a decent answer. We might not. We might stumble, but I'm pretty sure we can answer most of the questions if anybody wants to raise anything.
So let's start with Obakeng. Obakeng, did you want to ask your question yourself to get that understanding? And Franklin, you also
I'm all right.
You're all right, yeah? Franklin, you need an explanation. Do you want to ask Craig exactly the explanation you need? Oh, Camilla, your hand is raised. So let's start with Camilla. Camilla, your hand is raised. Then Shamsuddin, your hand is raised as well. Yeah, guys, let's do that. Just raise your hands where you're not understanding. And then, oh, and Kathleen as well. So Kathleen, hold on. Camilla, are you ready on your mic?
Yes, I am.
Okay, please proceed.
Okay. Hi, Craig. Good evening.
Hello.
I'm trying to I'm new to the protocols. I just read about Bitcoin like on a surface level. So I'm trying to get what this is all about. You said the Bitcoin protocol has the part that can be used for the transactions and then the Metamask protocol, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're talking about
Yes.
abstraction on the Metamask protocol. So I really didn't get like what that was about, and then you got to the nodes, and I just got lost.
Yeah. So it's about creating some structure on top of the protocol, and that structure can be anything you want it to be. I'm just using the Acme company as an example of perhaps what you might do. And a lot of this is kind of theoretical just now. Well, it's not theoretical. Actually, we use it in practice, but some of the thinking is theoretical in like, what would we do if we were running an internal accounting system, let's say, and we needed to track the spending for different departments in a way that used tokens between those departments to indicate value that's been transferred. And what we can do is use these MetaNet nodes as a way of controlling what gets added into specific ledgers. So these really define ledgers, essentially. If you think about it like that, they're their own little private ledger, and the only people that can write to those ledgers are the people who are in the signing group. So we call them an authority. and the authority might have a signing threshold. It might be 5 of 8, it might be 1 of 8, and they control what transactions can be created underneath their transaction. So effectively, it's a top-down graph. And so what you can do is you can effectively control what gets added into your ledger, because the only things that can be added into your ledger are transactions that have been signed off by the signing group. So everything has to be routed through them. So it's like a control and authority layer that allows people to control what gets added specifically into their part of the ledger. And at each level of these ledgers, or of this graph, sorry, you can specify different signing conditions. So the top level, we've got, let's say it's a board of directors, and 5 of those directors need to sign off to create another area of the company. That area of the company might have, I've got an example where it's a logistics. So what's that next? Yep. So let's say we've got a logistics node which has been created, and there's a further node above, which is the Acme company, right? But we're just not showing that here. So we're focusing on this logistics node, which is a sub node. And in that one, they might have, for example, a vehicle registry. They might have inspection logs. They might have vehicle sales nodes, things that they need to register to track the vehicles under their control. And it provides a fully verifiable and auditable record of everything that's happened with their vehicles. And you can see who signed off on specific transfers, who updated the inspection log at what time. So it's like
Greg.
It's a date. Yes.
So sorry, I apologize. We have some of our students have to cut to pray. They should be back in about 20 minutes. So if you don't mind, I would like to request that we stop the official education portion and move just to questions, which I guess we were already doing, but I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So I did want to say something though. So an example we had yesterday was many of our students are lawyers, and they're like, well, how can I apply this to law? So the way I'm seeing this is, let's say that you have, like you said, signing authorities. You can have a bunch of paralegals who review documents, and they can add it to they can add the information to their own note, right? But they're not lawyers. They can't sign off and actually submit it to the official records. That has to be done by a lawyer. So it would be basically a lawyer could create a set of rules that would allow them to have paralegals accomplish specific tasks, and only the people that are authorized to sign and accomplish those tasks are able to write to this ledger. Is that essentially what we're saying? Yeah,
that's what exactly what we're saying.
Hold up. And there's okay. There's a question from Shamsuddin. Shamsuddin, do you want to air your question, please? And then Kathleen, just come back and air your question. And there was someone else, somebody had raised their hand as well. You want to ask your questions now because it's kind of discussion time. Shamsuddin?
Hello.
Yes. Okay, Shamsuddin, before you organize your network, Franklin, I saw your hand up as well.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening, everybody. Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. I'm actually lost with the explanation. Actually, I'm following along like from the top. Actually, I'm new to the word Methanet and the nodes you're explaining on. Like what does this actually do? What's it like? What's the function in blockchain network? Like, you understand?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to grab those stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a demonstration.
If possible, you can use like a real world, like real-time project to explain. Like, I think that would be fine.
Yeah, I can definitely. I'm going to show you later on.
Thank you.
A tokenization example, which I might not be able to show the MetaNet authority specifically in action, but I can definitely explain how it works in this scenario. So yeah, bear with, we'll get through these slides and I'll show you a demonstration of a platform that we're working on just now. and hopefully that will bring to light kind of how this stuff actually works in the real world. Because I get it, it's super abstract. And my point was with the abstraction stuff is you really need to have that abstract mindset to kind of get beyond some of the thinking and just concentrate on what's possible with these signing groups and these authorities and the ability to create different things underneath these nodes, whatever they may be. And I guess that's the crux of the matter is like you still need a purpose to use these structures on top of Bitcoin. We use them quite often as locations for tokens or locations to store public keys of users, that sort of thing. And they really are just little containers that also let you segregate information into their own little buckets to help you reason about what that transaction is. So if that transaction is in the vehicle inspection log metanet nodes, then you know it's a vehicle inspection log record. So it's a way of organizing the information that you're storing on chain in a way that makes sense to us as humans, to help us better reason about what it is that we're doing on chain and where these things come from, and but also at the same time tracking who signed off on various changes over time. So it's a very powerful thing, and it is very abstract, so it can be very difficult to understand where to apply it. But hopefully, some of the demonstrations will explain. I see somebody's hand up. Abdul Jabbar, is that correct? You can go ahead, I think.
Hello, Mr. Craig. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much. I'm Shamsuddin. I wanted to ask you my question initially, but it's like my network is not cooperating, or it seems like I'm kind of audible now. Like what I wanted to ask, like, is about the presentation. Actually, it was awesome, so interesting and educating actually. And what I wanted to like have no clarification on is maybe I don't know if there is any way you can give us the bullet point of the entire presentation, like a summary
Yeah,
of
okay.
it.
Yeah, I've got a lot of, like I said, I've got a lot of resources embedded in this presentation. I plan on handing it across to Brian to distribute. So yeah, like there is a lot of detail that I am just skirting across, because if I'd went into the detail here, I'm pretty sure I'd have lost you all a while back. But so what I wanted to try and convey was the kind of high level purpose of this stuff, and maybe where we've used it ourselves to provide solutions to customers, which is the end goal.
Right,
Kathleen?
Craig, do you want to show?
Yes. Sorry.
Okay, no, you go.
Yes, guys, I wanted my chance at the opportunity to explain what I understand so far, and then you fill in the gaps for me, Craig. So the MetaNet protocol is this flexible protocol that looks to sit on the Bitcoin network, and it does this to create an element of structure, and the way it does it is by applying these different nodes, and certain people or certain persons can write in the ledger or make changes in these nodes, but it has to be a requisite majority of these persons.
Yeah, so it's a configurable thing, so we can configure the signing threshold to be just a single person out of a group, or we can configure it to be, all of the group, 5 out of 5 kind of thing, or 10 out of 10.
Greg, I have a suggestion, and because I'm seeing in the chat, like when people are now explaining it in their own way, they're now understanding it further. So do you want to like turn it into like a seminar type of session whereby they can explain it in their understanding, and then you like sprinkle over your technical architectural knowledge so that they don't get lost. Because some of them, like they're totally lost, but others are getting the gist of it.
Well, what I think might help matters is if I go and kind of launch a little demo that does some tokenization, then I can explain how the ledgers are used in that situation to control who can do what.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine, Craig. I'm also unmuting Abdul Jabbar because he also had a question for you. Abdul Jabbar, I think
Yeah.
you're unmuted right now. You can proceed with your question, please.
Good evening, everyone. Please, can you, in less than 2 seconds or something like that, just give me a tip of it in real estate, property development, like metaverse, all that kind of application to me?
Well, in terms of the real estate, I mean, what we might do in real estate is tokenize an asset. So you've got like a house or some land, and you want to allow multiple investors to invest in that thing. Then we might create a MetaNet node which represents the house. Underneath that, we'll create a token issuance node, which is a record of the tokens that we're going to issue against that house. And again, we could have different sign-offs at different layers of that. So it's a two thing. And then we could tokenize a house into multiple parts. So however many tokens we need, maybe 100 tokens. So you could have 100 investors invest in that piece of property or land or whatever it might be. And you've got a record of what it is because you've got your MetaNet node, which declares in its blob of data, it might be the title deeds that are recorded there.
Yes, sorry to cut in there. So everyone can see the appreciation or the depreciation of those assets or tokens you are talking about, right?
Yeah, I mean that the appreciation and depreciation of those tokens are based on real world appreciation and depreciation of the actual land or the house. So the tokens themselves will not reflect any change in that. But what they will reflect is an ownership share in that specific piece of property that's been tokenized. So again, it's for the market to decide what the value of those tokens are. And the token itself does not carry the value, so to speak, but it represents your share in that property or that land.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Craig, you want to show the demonstration then?
Yeah, let's do that. Death by PowerPoint is over for the time being. We might get time to do a little. I mean, I was going to talk about overlay networks, but I think that might be a bit much.
Did we want to wait for those other students to come back from prayer before we move on?
Just let me know if you're seeing my screen.
Oh, hold on. There's a question from Obakeng and Abdullahi, sorry, Issa Telly. Yeah, Obakeng, you want to ask your question and then Abdullahi?
All right, am I audible to everyone?
Loud and clear,
All right,
Obakeng.
thanks.
Yeah.
Craig, thanks for the presentation. What I wanted to ask is, since we're talking about architecture, what tool sets are we going to have to use to build on top of the blockchain layer with the MetaNet protocol?
Well, the MetaNet's quite a lightweight protocol, so really there's some toolkits out there that I'd recommend. So TS SDK by the Bitcoin Association is probably the best place to start.
Yes, you are. You are audible.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My question is, this node protocol, I can see that we have a parent node and a root node. Is it the same thing? If it is the same, under it, I can see also that this number of signatory signing the threshold for the parent from the previous slide is 3/5. Is it 3/8? I mean, and the members, that is the child nodes, is one is 2/3, another one is 1/5, I think, and something like that. So what does that mean? What's the effect of that with regard to the NOT protocol?
Effectively, what I'm trying to show here is that you can implement any signing conditions underneath a node. And so a parent node and a root node aren't necessarily the same thing. The root node is the very top, is the very first thing to be established, and everything else kind of grows from that. So it's the head of the graph, effectively. It's like the Genesis block in Bitcoin. It's where everything begins. And then underneath your root nodes, you might have child nodes, and those child nodes will point back at their parent node to say we're a member of this structure. And only if the signatures are valid is that actually a member of the structure. So you can get a case where people are spoofing transactions, pretending to be a transaction from another ledger. But if the signatures aren't valid, then they're not actually a member of your graph. And so you can easily test for that. So it also prevents people spoofing transactions and trying to trick you into thinking that one of their transactions is one of your transactions, kind of thing. So it provides some control and some fraud proofing.
Sorry to cut you. Is
Sorry.
the parent node?
Sorry, guys. Listen, could we raise hands so that we go in a sequence? Because first of all, we can't even see who's speaking, and it's kind of throwing off Craig's train of thought. Okay, so let's go sequence by sequence and exhaust and exhaust. And I reckon personally, it's because right now you're getting the blueprint. That's why it's seeming a bit difficult. But when you see a demonstration, it's gonna be very straightforward.
Okay.
Please mute your microphone if you're in a noisy background, please. Craig, I'm gonna mute everybody, then you unmute yourself, please.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Oh.
Okay, Craig.
Mute. There we go. Right, cool. So I just wanted to kind of run into a quick demo, which might help you understand what the MetaNet is about. It might not, because I was going to concentrate more on the tokenization with this demo, but I'll take you through what this site is and what it does. Essentially, this is a site that allows businesses to sign up. I've created a little business here called Lunchbox. They can sign up to create tokens and vouchers and tickets and that sort of thing for their own businesses to help encourage customers to come to their business. But the site is controlled by Emmy Wales, who's a Welsh government department, I think. And they use the MetaNet. They've created a root node. I don't know if you can see the root node. I'll just check. No, we've hidden it. They've created a root node, and that root node requires that any new businesses that get added to the ledger, so like Lunchbox, will need to be approved by the two people, or at least two people that are a member of the Emmy Wales board. And so they do some checking of the business and ensure that it's a valid business, it's not fraud, it's legit, before they get accepted onto the platform. So they use the MetaNet, particularly in this instance, to kind of prevent anybody from joining that isn't a valid business. And they have that approval process that businesses need to jump through. They need to get the signatories to sign off on the business before they're allowed on the platform. So that's one area where it's been used in this instance. And then just to show you this while I'm here, so the reason for this platform is to allow the businesses to create and distribute tokens. So what they've got is the idea of a storefront. and they can take, is it my storefront? Hold on, it's been a while. Yeah, it's my storefront, but I've kind of lost the. Normally there's a. You know what it is? My business hasn't been submitted for approval. But the idea being that we can create tokens in here. So I go to create tokens. And so me as a small Welsh business, I might want to attract people with some vouchers, like free toast or something. I'm not sure how well toast translates. You get toast in the Caribbean. I imagine you're all eating pineapples or something. a lot nicer than British toast. Do you do toast?
Yeah.
You do toast, good. Right, so we can select a little file here, our description. Do I have any toast? Do I have any toast? Yes, toast. Free toast. Bring along your voucher to redeem free toast. Okay, so we can also add some legal contracts to this if we wanted to, if there was any specific clauses or terms that we wanted to apply to the offer. And we can select a quantity to mint. I'm only going to mint 10 just now. So let's go and create 10 of these vouchers. And I can push it to my website, which will create it on my storefront. And the idea of this is the businesses themselves have their own websites, and they embed an iframe onto their website, which contains these tokens that we're about to mint. We can also push it to the marketplace, which is kind of internal. So there's a marketplace here. This is internal to this platform. So we've got our free toast vouchers. We've said it's a voucher. It's going to be £0. We could also charge for these as well. We can create different things, like we can create tickets and rewards and discounts and milestones and achievements. But vouchers makes most sense for free toast, so we're going to create those tokens. There's our free vouchers. We'll mint them.
So
Cool.
something I do want to say, this is Nino from Fifth Work. I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yep. Yes,
so,
yep.
So regarding what you're doing right now, this is just an example of what could be done for how to build on the blockchain and how to record these vouchers on the blockchain, how to record whatever it is that you're trying to store on a public ledger. So
yes, exactly.
Yeah. So I just want the students to know, because they're coming from different areas, that you don't have to have a restaurant, you don't have to be giving away free toast. You could be a lawyer and you're posting, or you're allowing someone to actually record something to your public ledger, like whether that's a person's will or whether that is some sort of public document, like a deed to a house. These are things that you would allow certain people to publish, and he showed you a structure for how you could give access to specific people. I was just showing that, like, whether that's an inspector is the only type of people that can actually officially inspect the house, or whether that's the person that actually signs the deed, or the notary, or whatever ledger it is, whatever public information you're trying to show and prove to people. This is how you could go about doing it. I just wanted to throw that in.
And the other thing is, you don't actually have to push out any of that document information itself. You can just push out a hash of the document itself and record at the time that this was the document that was signed. Here's a hash. And then later you can produce the document and show that it matches the hash to say, like, 100% this is valid and provable. So again, if you're worried about revealing information, then you don't necessarily have to. You can just publish the hash and store the document and just ensure that you're retaining both the hash and the document as it was hashed at that point in time.
So where that would be good is if you're dealing with, like, private information. So let's say you don't want to publish someone's, their name, their birth date, their
Yeah.
NIA or anything like that on a public domain. You don't have to. You can store the hash there. You can send the information to the judge for his validation or his education or whatever. And then he can actually verify the hash was published and created and signed at a certain time.
Nino, I
Yeah.
have a
What you
question.
can.
Craig, sorry. Yesterday
Oh,
we
you
had
know.
we had the same question being repeated several times, and I know you and I have we discussed this in London as well. So could this platform work for something like elections? Could you like show us with a demonstration for something like in countries that you want to fight corruption, like in terms of anti-corruption measures, so like election fairness or anti-counterfeit products? I know the one on Ali's platform, it does the provenance thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Manufact. Yeah, it does that. So do you want to show us also other demonstrations that could be applied? I know this can be applied in everyday as well, but just to further the students' understanding.
Yeah, I don't have access to Ali's demo as
Okay.
it stands.
Okay.
But it's a good example. And so you can imagine, and voting is a notoriously difficult thing to solve as well, because you don't want to have any connection between the person voting. It shouldn't be traceable anyway, and yet it should be fully accountable. So those two things kind of jar with each other. And so that's why voting on the public blockchain is a problem yet to be fully solved. But it seems to me like it eventually will be solved, and we'll have like fully transparent voting at some point in the future. We're just not fully there yet, and it's a complicated problem, just due to the nature of it and due to the privacy that needs to be achieved to stop people tracing down voters and say, "Well, you voted for them, so I'm going to, we do bad things to you."
Right. Okay.
But the idea, again, getting back to this idea, we've now got something that can be redeemed. So we've got a token that's going to, and we can take that along to the vendor that originally issued the token, and we can have them scan our QR codes, and then that would use the token. I'm not going to get into QR code scanning because that would mean me getting my phone out and everything. But rest assured, this can be scanned and redeemed. At the point it's redeemed, the token is spent. It can never be redeemed again. It's because it's 100%. It's basically a UTXO in the Bitcoin blockchain, so it adheres to all the same rules. There's no double spend possible, and so that's one of the benefits of using the blockchain for these tokens rather than a traditional database, which can be subject to corruption and double spends and various other issues. And so the blockchain, it gives you that level of assurance that what it says is correct, effectively. And that's kind of what I want to show. It's just the ease at which we can create tokens, and those tokens can be anything. It doesn't have to be vouchers or tickets. It can actually be records, specific records that get tokenized, and those records can be passed around between individuals. It can be components on a supply chain, and those components are tracked and traced through the supply chain as they get consumed and used in different areas of said supply chain. And that's where I was going to come on to overlay networks, but I think that might be a little bit a step too far today. Because that's really where we've got different organizations, each running their own set of Bitcoin UTXOs. So they store their own information, their own Bitcoin information, and they share it between each other over a number of set protocols to allow them to kind of intercommunicate and swap information, essentially. So they can swap tokens, they can update their own records, they can request records from other people. But that's like moving into the future a little bit, and we're still not there yet. Like blockchain and Bitcoin have got a long way to go before we're fully onto the overlay networks, and organizations are operating in this way. So it's a little bit of future horizon look is what I was kind of aiming for there. But it's a little bit complicated. And it's complicated to explain as well.
Okay. So Nino, do you want to join the guest lab then?
Okay.
Craig,
Yeah,
have you
so
finished sharing your slides?
I was sharing my slides, but now I'm sharing my screen.
No,
Oh, do you want me to share my slides fully? Yeah. No, I'm going to do that, yeah.
no, oh, you're still doing your presentation then.
yeah, he still has a presentation.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, cool. But Nino, yeah,
I do want
this
to
guest
chime
lab.
in with a couple of things.
Right, okay,
Um,
Yeah.
So I don't expect all of the students to grasp what he's talking about. I expect them to see what he's presenting and be like, okay, I can create tokens on a chain. I can create a ledger. I can have that ledger private. I can have it public. That's basically what he's getting at. Because in the end, you're most likely not going to be the person actually creating these ledgers. It's going to be someone like Craig doing it for you. You're going to reach out, partner with him. He's going to get some sort of compensation for this, and he's going to build it for you. He deals with this stuff all the time. I have a developer that does the same thing. You know, there are people out there that are capable of doing this. What we need you guys to do is grasp that, oh, this technology exists. Like I can use QR codes to interact with my vendors or my people or my compatriots. I don't know the word in English. My co-workers, but from other companies, my equals, my peers.
Peers.
Peers. Yeah,
your
so
compadres.
compadres, yeah. It's you're not going to have to know how to do all of this. Just grasp that this technology exists, this capability exists. There are people like Craig who are good at this. This is what they do. And you just need to find the Craig. You need to find your Craig, if it's not Craig here, to actually help you build this. So I just was throwing that out there. But this is wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this. I have something I need built. I'll probably reach out to you later. This is really good.
Yeah, I think that's the point. It's like, if I'd came along today and started introducing you to the kind of low level nuts and bolts of what all this stuff is and how it works, I'd have lost you all. So it's better to kind of understand it at the high level. We can create these nodes, and these nodes can have authorities associated to them with signing rules. And anything that you want to create underneath that specific node needs to pass by the authority and be signed into existence by the people who physically represent those keys that are associated with that node. And that kind of concept, if you abstract it away, is very powerful because it can be used in multiple places. And that's what I've really been trying to get at is you need to apply abstract thinking to see how this protocol, which on paper sounds really boring, and if I came with you and if we stepped through it, I'd have lost you all, and you'd have been away. I know, reading your iPhone or whatever. But just understanding the concepts of what it actually allows, that's the important thing, because you can take that away, then start thinking about how you can apply it to your own businesses, to your own areas of expertise. And that's what I wanted to try and convey today is the MetaNet protocol is really flexible. You don't really need to know much about it other than what it can do and how it can help you structure information on the blockchain in a way that makes sense for you and your business. And you can apply various controls to that information as well.
Craig, you have two questions. There was a question from Namnan, and then there's a question from Camila. So whoever's ready between you two, please ask your questions.
Okay, again, I want to get something clarified. The MetaNet and the transaction part. So does it mean that for every structure you are building on the Bitcoin protocol, you have to carry out transactions such that now impute like whatever data you want to put, then you can, like, you have to always like carry out transactions to be able to have, you know, your data input as, I mean, I don't get how the transaction works with the Methernet.
Yeah, so every time that you want to extend or update or create a new Methernet node, you need to issue a transaction. In order to extend underneath the root node, you need to issue a transaction which is signed off by the authority that's designated in the root nodes, and it must meet the signing conditions. So if you've got 8 people in the root nodes, and it says 5 people need to sign, then 5 people need to sign this new transaction to get it added into the ledger underneath the root node. And similarly, this new node that's just been created, it might have a signing condition of 3 of 2, or 2 of 3 rather, in which 2 people will need to sign off to anything that gets created under there. And so it's about creating these graphs of control that allow you to create different information underneath different areas. And those areas, like I said, they're super abstract, so you can impart your own meaning to what they are. You can create your own specific transactions that captures specific pieces of information. Like, you know, if you're a lawyer, it might be a will, and you might have an area that's just for wills. You might have an area for contracts. And these are different MetaNet nodes, and they have different authorities controlling who's allowed to write to them. And so that's effectively what it is. It's creating these little structures that have conditions associated to them to, you know, allow or prevent people from writing to them.
Thanks, Craig. Nanman, you want to ask your question, please?
Yes, hi. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Okay, now thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
loud and clear.
Yep. Okay, good. I was lost from the start because my network has been so poor here. So, which platform do we go to build all these things, and then what are the prerequisites that one need to put together before he move to that platform and get all these things or go going?
So
because I
this
just
is all
catch up with you people somewhere around here.
Yeah, this is all Bitcoin SV, and that is different to the Bitcoin that the public all know and love. And so, kind of as I mentioned at the start, Bitcoin, there's been a big disagreement in the Bitcoin space, and it's splintered into BTC, which is the one that's number 1 in the coin market cap and all that. That is like a very hamstrung and crippled version of Bitcoin that can't really do all of the things that the original protocol could do.
Maybe.
So I work with BSV, which is the original Bitcoin protocol that's been restored, and that has many capabilities. One of them is the full opcode set, which allows us to do these interesting things with Bitcoin, such as the MetaNet protocol. So it's so it's a BSV platform essentially is what you want to be looking at.
So, Craig, in terms of intraoperability, do you want to explain to them how it works? Because I know some people work with BSV and Polygon at the same time.
Yeah.
So how would it work? So let's say if someone has a preference to a particular protocol, how could they use the benefits of the other protocol?
It's a good question. There's a white paper that was released recently that allows you to create a construct that doesn't matter which blockchain, that allows you to transfer an asset from one blockchain to another. Now I'm not going to say that I know enough about that to speak about it, because I really don't. I just know that it was an end-chain discussion that was had at the London Blockchain Conference, where they disclosed this innovation. And yeah, I don't know enough about it to say how it works, But imagine what you're doing is you're somehow locking and provably locking a token on one network, and then creating a token to represent that locked token on another network, and then using that representation to fulfill out whatever it is you need to do on BSV. And the reason you would do that particularly is things like transaction costs, things like settlement time. BSV is very quick to confirm, so there's zero confirmation and very cheap transactions. So if your transaction's under a specific value, then it'll be almost instantaneously approved or settled. Whereas other networks like the BTC, it can take up to 10 minutes for your transaction to actually hit the chain, because again, there's not enough block space, and so you get a backlog, a queue of people competing to try and get their transaction on chain, which can lead to holdups. So really the thing to take away is that BSV is kind of Bitcoin, but at scale. They've done everything in their power to scale the network, to increase the block size, to allow many more transactions to happen, and to happen cheaply, which opens up the possibilities for what you can actually do with the blockchain network itself.
Thanks, Craig. So there's a question from Zikrula, but Zikrula seems to be having a network issue. So just for the benefit of the students, Craig, we had a very deep conversation in London regarding public procurement, because my study is in public procurement, and
yeah.
Ethereum as it is, or BTC as it is unlikely to work for things like achieving trust and transparency in public procurement. So if you could use that as an example, because Nigeria was trying to introduce blockchain for public procurement, for data integrity. And there's some countries in Africa as well trying to experiment with the blockchain for data integrity. So if you use that as an example, something that we all understand that governments need to procure, how would you put it out?
Yeah, so again, you could have like a national register of opportunities that you list out and allow the public and companies, or you may even blacklist or whitelist it, so it's only certain government registered companies that are allowed to view and understand what opportunities are available. And again, that all of that information can be kind of held, if not directly on chain, you can hold a hash of the record. Now, hashes are a very powerful thing. So if you've got a hash of a record, you can disclose specific parts of a record using Merkle trees of the. This is going to complicate things. Merkle trees of information. So you can do selective disclosures of specific pieces of information, and have that proven by providing a path that allows you to hash the information up and prove that it matches the hash that was published to chain. And so that allows you to selectively disclose specific parts of tender information to people who might have the right permissions. But half of this stuff is all about the architecture that's off chain as well. So it's about creating the applications that allow people to raise these opportunities and to have them properly codified and lodged on chain. And then you might want to have another application that allows people that are interested in the tenders, they would log in and might have a profile that says you're allowed to view, healthcare tenders, but not IT tenders. And so they would only see specific tenders that are available to them. But then you would want to record transparently the submissions for those tenders. You would want to record transparently the point scoring system, so that people could then come along and review in the future. Was that actually fair? Was that did that go down the way we think it went down, or has somebody been paying some money in the back door kind of thing? So you definitely want to have a transparent, auditable log of the things that went on in these public tender processes to help fight the corruption. And I think the other thing is people know that all of this information has been recorded on an immutable ledger. That itself is a prevention mechanism because they know the record's going to be there. There's no way of kind of rubbing my fingerprints off of this. My fingerprints are all over it because I've been in there, and these are my decisions that I made, and we're recording them on chain. So that acts as a prevention mechanism in itself to stop people fraudulently or allocating tender wins to parties that perhaps weren't the best placed and weren't the most suitable, because perhaps they've got a relationship or they've got some sort of financial relationship. So yeah, it's all about using the transparency of the Bitcoin blockchain to record this information so that it can be reviewed at a later time for any wrongdoing, and also as a prevention mechanism in itself. Because if people know that all of your actions with regards to this tender process are recorded, and we can go back and look at them, and there's no chance of these records being tampered because they're written at the point in time. That's a big discouragement to anybody that's out to kind of fool the system or benefit from some lax.
Thanks, Craig.
Yeah.
I see we have a hand up. King, you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, please?
Oh, okay, thank you so much. Good evening, Greg.
Evening.
Am I being heard, please?
Yeah, King, you're loud and clear.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank you for the presentation so far. It's been quite educative and enlightening. So I want to really understand how this works. Okay, I'm thinking, imagine I want to create some kind of interconnected universe of applications, right? That can function for different purposes. So how do I get this out with what you have been taught so far? Is there a methodology? Is there a mechanism?
Yeah. So one of the things I was going to touch on, but I decided that probably not the best, was the idea of an overlay network. It sounds more complicated than it is, but once you delve into it, it is as complicated as you think it is. So the very simple level, all that an overlay network is a corporation or an organization that tracks and controls their own UTXOs, which are the individual Bitcoin tokens, and then using that overlay networks, you can imagine other companies that have similar goals or similar things that they want to accomplish. I've got a slide actually that might be useful for pulling up. Do you still see my screen? Where is the slides?
Yeah, Craig, we see. Craig, while you find the slides, you want to hear Al Hassan's question?
Yep.
Yeah, Al Hassan, please.
Okay. Thank you very much for this question. Can you hear me, please?
Yes.
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah, about the electoral process that I was talking about. Like in my country now, we already have a device called BVAS to all this kind of election process for verification of voters. So when I want to solve the problem of electoral problem with blockchain, does it require building another device or just inserting some blockchain things into that BVAS, or does it require building another device so that the problem can be solved? Thank you.
Oh, I didn't quite catch that, to be honest. Can you repeat the question a little bit?
Like in my country now, we have a device called BVAS for election processes for verification.
Yeah.
So we do find this kind of result manipulation and corruption and all that. So like, you can't compromise record with blockchain. Yeah. So like if I want to maybe bring solution to that. Does it require building another device or just inserting some kind of nodes into that beavers?
I guess what it really needs is for governments to issue government-based IDs on chain such that they can then be used as a way of verifying and establishing that you're the person that you say you are, which probably means we need like government wallets where those credentials can be stored. And so you can imagine in the future, and again, this is kind of a little bit away, but if we're definitely moving towards blockchain, which I think we are, then you can imagine your government will issue you a passport, and that passport is just a digital record. And then you can use that passport or an aspect of that passport, it might just be the passport number, and you do that through the selective disclosure that I was kind of chatting about earlier, and that's all done through hashing and Merkle trees. But you can look that up and figure out how it all works. I'm not going to get into it. But then you can selectively disclose this is my passport number, and then perhaps at the voter booth they issue you a vote based on you disclosing your passport number. So you then get a vote, and they know that that passport number hasn't been registered twice because they can do a quick check on the blockchain. Yeah, nobody's voted with this passport number, and then you're conferred a vote. Then you can use that vote to actually vote in the election. And perhaps that's a secure enough way to prevent this kind of double voting or tainted voting that's going on.
And James, could you use the ZKPs to like kind of conceal the actual identity of the person to avoid them being attacked? Said potentially like somebody could be attacked because of their affiliation or how their vote was made.
Yeah, that's a real risk, is disclosing something that leads to an actual person such that they can be pressured or beaten up or whatever.
Okay. So James, you have a question as well.
Yeah,
You unmute
yeah.
your mic.
Can you hear
And
me?
guys, don't forget Craig has something he wants to show us. So if your question is pressing, you could ask, but if it's not pressing, let's also give him a chance to show us what he wants to show us.
Oh, sure,
Yeah.
sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, what I was trying to point out right now is concerning my counterparts that just spoke earlier on about the BVS that is used to vote in our country. Basically, the system already identifies people who already voted. Like you go, you have a voter's card, you use a number on the machine, and your vote is recorded without your identity being concealed. And the only time you can manipulate is when we have polling units, different polling units across the country. So once the votes are complete in this polling unit, you need to send the data from that unit to the general consensus. What I think my counterpart is trying to ask is what is the difference between that system and us trying to implement blockchain technology, because the system already does that. It prevents double spending, in this case, double voting, and it conceals people's identity. So why should we gravitate towards blockchain in that aspect?
Yeah, I guess the main reason here is that everything's completely public, and so if you want to assure yourself of the actual vote count, then you could go count the votes. That'd be the main thing, is the records of voting would be public, and you could verify vote counts. You could assure yourself that what's been discussed in the media
Yeah.
is correct.
True.
So the problem with a database is you're relying on the database operator to be truthful with you and tell you exactly how many people voted in that database instance.
All right.
And so that could be a point of corruption.
Okay, Olanrewaju, I know you have a question, but please hold on to it so that Craig can exhaust what he wants to show us. And then after he finishes, we still have like an hour to go before class ends. Then we can have proper discussions and you can bombard him with questions as much as you want. So Craig, please.
Yeah. So it was just this last little bit. It was discussing, somebody said they wanted an interconnected system of all the things or something. And I just wanted to kind of show this slide. And so this is an example trying to convey the idea of interconnected overlay networks. And so you might have in this scenario, and again, it's using some abstract thinking because we need to do that at this stage. Some of this stuff is very much in its infancy. But if you can imagine, we've got various different travel companies and they want to issue a universal pass that allows people who hold that pass to travel on bus company A, tram company B, subway company C, or rail company D. What might happen, and I'm not saying this is necessarily 100% going to be what does happen, but we might have each of these companies run their own overlay network, which is where they control all of their Bitcoin resources and they know what's spent, what's a token, what's a node, and they track all of these pieces of information. They might have a universal ticket token that they each agree on. They agree the standard of the token, and then they can pass that token between each other as part of this overlay network and accept that token onto each of their different services, despite them being distinct companies. They can share the token across the network because they've all agreed to a certain standard which this token is going to conform to. And so that's kind of the power of the overlay network is you can have these distinct businesses agree certain standards for the information that they swap between each other. And again, you can imagine in the realm of supply chains that this might become really useful. So you've got your different suppliers are all supplying built goods, and those built goods are then getting pushed into your supply chain, and you're building something with their built good, and then you can track all of the different components that have came through. And they might also have information about which batch it came from the manufacturer. So if there's any goods that are bad, then it's easily traceable because this token represents that batch. And so we can see that all of these things from that batch are having the same issue. It's a bad batch, and you can go back to the manufacturer. It's all about traceability. You can trace these goods through the supply chain. And previously, this was very hard to do because it was all siloed and distinct company databases and not readily shared between the different partners of the supply chain. And so the idea of having these tokenized overlay networks where you're passing tokens between each other is to try and join up some of this information that's previously been stuck in databases and to make use of it in ways that benefits humanity.
Thanks. Do you want to take Olan Rewaju's question now?
Yeah, fire away. I do need to take a toilet break at some point.
All right, cool. Take this question, and then Nino is gonna.
I might be able to answer it if you want to go ahead and shoot the question.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Fire
good evening, everyone. Yeah, good evening, everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear, Olan Rewaju.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brain, for the wonderful presentation. I actually wanted to know, we are trying to build a decentralized data center, and I wanted to know if Methernet protocol can actually support such technology itself, and if it can, of what advantage is it to Ethereum or Bitcoin protocol itself? So that's just all of my question. Thank you.
So is it search technology? Did I catch that right?
Sorry, let me come again.
Yeah.
We're building a decentralized data center.
Yes.
And I wanted to know if Methernet protocol can support that, if we can actually build on Methernet protocol as a security measure and a CIA facility to support a decentralized protocol data center solution, which offers cloud computing, AI, Copos, and the rest of it. So I wanted to know if MetaNet protocol can actually support that, and of what advantage is it to Ethereum and Bitcoin platform?
Yeah, so the MetaNet protocol itself probably isn't best fit for this, but what would be is the idea, again, what we're looking at here, where you've got connected overlay networks. So you might have multiple data centers represented by specific overlay nodes, and those overlay nodes share records between each other, whether it's I know, let's say SQL updates. So you can, instead of doing log shipping, you could ship tokens between each other which contain the SQL updates which need to be replicated in other data centers, something like that, for lack of a better example. But it would be the overlay networks that you want to look at, because that allows you to have, you know, distinct data centers and have them communicate amongst each other to keep up to date with the latest information that each other has. So they're effectively peers on the same network, and they share the relevant information to keep themselves up to date with whatever information you want to serve as part of this distributed data center. So I would be looking at overlay networks if I were you. Which takes me on to my next slide, which gives you all of the resources that you need.
Craig, that's what they were waiting for. That's what they were waiting for.
Yeah, exactly. So this is I've got another slide on here that talks all about the MetaNet as well, and the resources that you need to kind of have a look through and kind of figure that all out in yourself. But the overlay networks is here. I'll be back in 2 seconds. I really need to run to the toilet.
All right, cool. That's fine. Guys, now we are heading into the guest lab. So Craig, you can stop sharing your slides if you don't mind. And then we're going to have an open panel. So yeah, Nino, back to you in studio.
Does anyone? Okay, so let me go to the Discord real quick and see if anybody has any questions. Okay, let's go back up. So I'm in the general Discord right now. How can decentralized architecture frameworks enable community-driven metaverse development? Wow, that's a lot. Okay, decentralized architecture frameworks. I don't know what they mean by that. This is Ajamani. Am I saying that right? Are you in here? Can everyone hear me?
Nino, loud and clear. Loud and clear.
So I'll just move on to his next question. Let's go back to that. Do you all see where I'm reading?
He means decentralized, like blockchains and DLTs.
Okay. Community-driven metaverse development. So community-driven metaverse basically is kind of like what he was showing with his Welsh example, where they already had like a bunch of restaurants. You could have your own unique tokens. You could have anything that you're trying to create where you have your own individual content creators coming to your platform and asking permission to join your platform, right? So fifth work, an example for fifth work is we have courses, we host courses. We have it and we're building it so that course creators or content providers can come in and build their own course content. So let's say that you want to educate somebody on how to actually, you know, write these overlays onto the blockchain. Let's say that Craig wants to create his own content and he wants to be compensated for that. Well, we can actually build that into the blockchain itself. We can say, okay, Craig, for $5 or for 5 Bitcoin or whatever it be, you know, you can come in and you can create a course, and then you can charge people whatever you want to actually host that course. But we're going to expect 10% in return or something like that. Well, these can all be written onto the blockchain, all these conditions. And you can have These people come to your little metaverse, and they're interacting with your set of rules that you've set up, and you are being compensated for it, and they are being compensated for it. And I mean, that's just one example. But for his Welsh example, he was restaurants themselves were requesting access to the website. They would go, they would pay, I'm assuming, to join that network, or they would pay some sort of royalties based on each token that they generate. Maybe they pay per token. You know, there's going to be some aspect of money, some monetization involved. You can build that into the conditions of creating those tokens. You can also have it like a variable, like he had it set, where you can change the value dynamically of what each of these tokens is going to be worth. There's a lot of variable content that you can create, and you can establish how you want all of this interaction to take place on the blockchain itself. Now, does that, I mean, I wish he was here to see if that answers his question. But that would be an example, a couple examples of community-driven metaverses. What role do NFTs play in verifying ownership and provenance? That's going to be another day. We're going to talk in depth about NFTs, I believe, in 2 days, 1 or 2 days. And you'll see exactly how NFTs can prove.
I think NFTs are tomorrow.
Okay, I don't remember if I'm in that class or not, but it's unimportant. You'll learn a lot. You'll hear a lot about NFTs. With regards to what Craig said today, you know, the parent and the root nodes that he was talking about, that goes into NFTs a little bit. You can have a set of rules where these people can sign, these people can generate NFTs, and those NFTs can be representative of, going back to law, a will. We have an NFT that is, you know, an actual image of a will, if you want it to be that, and you just hide the personal data so that the personal data can be verified with a hash somewhere else, but it's not actually tied to a person's name, a person's identity, just the conditions of their will, something along those lines. So that's what NFTs can do. You can have generic NFTs that are reused. You can have unique NFTs, like a certificate of completion. You can have, in the regards to real estate, when I purchased a house, or I purchased a little condo because I couldn't afford a house, it was quite a bit of money to pay the notary just to verify the funds and everything. It is actually criminal how much they charged me. I would like to get away from that. If we had a fully on-chain system, there would be no fees involved at all. It would be, well, I mean, there would be a negligible fee, but I wouldn't be paying a middleman to verify that the money exists. I could use the chain and the ledger to verify the money exists. So next question. To design a scalable, decentralized, and secure virtual city infrastructure, okay, what blockchain technologies would you utilize? You know, that's really up to you. And it depends on what you're trying to accomplish with this virtual city. Who are you trying to bring into the virtual city? If you're trying to involve a whole bunch of Ethereum projects, I imagine you'd want to use Ethereum. But it depends on, you know, what exactly you're trying to get after. How can virtual reality and augmented reality integrate with blockchain to create immersive, interactive metaverse experiences?
Yeah, there's some examples of that. There's a great company that is it Transmira, I think they're called, and they have kind of been leading the game on augmented reality linked to the blockchain, so that such that you can kind of place down digital markers within a geofenced location, and then anybody that kind of walks through that geofence location who has the appropriate app running. So you need the Transmira app, or you need to be wearing some goggles with the appropriate things running, would see the augmented reality spectacle, whatever it might be, a dragon or I don't know, marshmallow man, whatever the imagination is brought forward. So yeah, there's companies out there that are doing that. And again, these kind of things, they probably require cheap transactions. You don't want to be spending $10 every time you want to make a change to your virtual dragon that you've laid down somewhere. And you don't want to pay $10 every time you want to kind of create one of these in the virtual world. You want to be spending pennies, if that. And that's kind of the benefit of a scalable public blockchain. That's one of the main benefits. The transactions are cheap because they operate on with the benefits of scale. So that you might be paying a fraction of a cent, but there's so many other people paying a fraction of a cent that to the miners, that's enough for them to skim a profit and not put up your transaction fees, because there's so many people that are able to skim off of that. Skimming just a tiny amount is all that's required. And so that's where scalability comes into things. And I think that's one of the key things that's been missed by almost everybody. Ethereum are kind of failing to scale. BTC are failing to scale. Cardano. So a lot of these other blockchains, they have a scaling issue that they need to kind of surmount. I think that's the word. That's the word, isn't it? Surmount. In order to be viable in the future, I think. So I think once people realise the kind of that scale brings cheap transactions, and that currently it's 1,000th of a cent to make a Bitcoin transaction on the BSV network. Once you understand that it's that cheap to make a transaction and what you can do with transactions, I think that's a real game changer. And it takes some thinking through to get there, but once you do, you kind of realise that scale really, really does matter.
So, Nino and Craig, I personally have a question for you guys, and I know we've gone over this point a million times, but I personally understand what BSV can do. I saw it at London Blockchain Conference. I've seen it on Ali's projects. I've seen it with Ela's projects. I've seen it in so many of those open day, demonstrations in London. I've seen them. But what is the big divide? Like, it's like a fashion thing. I'm not gonna wear, Mr. Red because it's not stylistic. But because Mr. Yellow is known for hodling and all that, I think Mr. Red's platform is fake and all that. The economics and the scalability you can't compare. So for these students, how are you going to advise them? Because there's so much stigmatization around the BSV. Greg Wright as a personality as well. Let's leave that out for now. But I think there's so many things that BSV can personally do, and I'm blockchain agnostic. I'm neutral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the way I like to think about it is BTC has effectively been BTC was changed over time, and it moved away from what the core original Bitcoin white paper specified that Bitcoin was. So it's moved more to this digital gold narrative. And a lot of people have bought into that, and it's their right to think that's what Bitcoin is and that's what it does. It's this digital gold. But I think a lot of them feel threatened by what BSV is bringing, which is the original proposition, which is cheap, fast transactions at scale. And also, I think BSV upsets the status quo. In fact, it usually upsets the status quo. So you've got a lot of these middlemen that have previously been skimming transactions off of all of us, and they're likely to lose a lot of their income because this new technology is coming into play. So it's got a lot of enemies. So I think what's happened is there's been a lot of propaganda thrown our way to say, ignore that, just don't, it's not even Bitcoin, don't listen. But the reality is, the BSV is the kind of original specification of what Bitcoin is restored, because it was actually, we had to go and, or the Bitcoin Association had to go and restore some of the opcodes and change some of the code to revert it back to the way it used to be. So it's just these two different visions. The one that's got all the money and all the glory just now, it might serve a purpose in the world. I'm not sure. I don't know if it will in the long term, but a lot of people think it's going to end up being some sort of reserve currency for something. It might do, but what it's not going to do is it's not going to allow the common bloke, me and you, to transact freely between one another, because every time you transact with that, we're getting charged $5 or $10, whatever the charge is on that day, and that's because it doesn't scale. That's because there's not enough room in the blocks to fit me and you for just a fraction of a cent. They have to charge $5 because the space is so limited. And in fact, one of the things that they introduced was this replace by fee, so that if you weren't getting into the next block quick enough, you could pay more. And so effectively, it's the people that pay the most that get into the blocks and they get priority. I think that model's all sorts of wrong. I think we just want to scale the blocks and allow people to transact freely and cheaply. And then that will benefit society the most. The idea of BTC being some sort of global reserve currency, that might come to fruition, I don't know. But it's certainly not the Bitcoin that I read when I read the white paper, which was all about cheap microtransactions effectively. And so there's definitely two different camps. There's the digital gold camp, and then there's the BSV camp, and we care more about the technology and what the blockchain can do, and working at the protocol level to make it do specific things. So I think that's the two differences. We kind of treat it differently. They're treating it like digital gold. We're treating it as a kind of a global trust layer, and a transaction system that should be scalable and should be very cheap to use.
So I'd like to come in and add to that as well. So, I have a company we deal with microtransactions. It allows us to be global, and we can interact with literally every community right now. That's BSV. If I were to be using BTC, the rewards for this class would be so minute that you wouldn't really even be able to do anything with it. But when you go through the final, you're going to have the ability to earn up to basically $1 or $2. If you ace the test, you're going to get $1 USD or $2 USD, right? Well, what that allows you to do is that's, I don't know, about 1 million transactions in BSV. So what you can build whatever you want. You can test it as much as you want. You have the total and utter freedom to instantly transact and do it as many times as you want while you're building whatever you're trying to build. No other platform allows you to do that I know of. And the reason that I'm educating you all in BSV is because I want to build something. I would like to have a platform that fifth work, I would like to have a platform that allows me to educate everyone in the world, no matter where they are, no matter what their economic background. And I want you to build products that make money. And if it costs you almost nothing to use it, then that is a very, very powerful and versatile tool to provide you. That's why I'm giving you BSV. When you go through the Ideathon, you're going to get $300 US. The top 3 courses are going to get $300 US each, or the top 3 ideas. And that allows you, that is plenty to do whatever you want with the blockchain. That's not going to pay for your developers. That's not going to pay for your network or your hosting services or your servers, but it will be more than enough to interact with the metaverse. So I do want you to, in the end, I'm not advocating for any blockchain. If you would like to move to BTC, if you find a way of doing that, go for it. But it is in your best interest to build it on BSV hash out all of your problems, figure out your concepts, figure out your profit margins. And if you would like to transition to something else after the fact, go for it. If that's where you want to go, if that's where your user base is, whatever the case may be, I will help you do that. But in the beginning, I think you are best served by using something that is scalable, cheap, and more than enough to support your endeavors.
Just before on that note, actually, I think towards the end you need to show them to guide them to how they should do their assessment as well, because
I
with the
will.
assessment they're gonna get rewards for their assessment, okay? And
Yes.
there's a very good question here by Camilla. And Craig, essentially, Camila wants to understand the hard fork of Bitcoin. And I think it's important for you to take us through this in your own eyes, because on Monday we had a Bitcoin maxi, and he was like, BSV is not it. You know what I mean? And many people think BSV is not it. Many wallets don't, exchanges don't even list it as a coin. So just let's go back to the origins. Let's go back to the genesis of this all. Tell us about this fork. What happened? What are the repercussions? Are two forks still in existence, like with Ethereum and Ethereum Classic? And
we've got 3.
So let's go back to the Bitcoin origins right now, please.
Yeah. So really the whole thing started really when Satoshi Nakamoto walked away in about 2011. And at that point in time, he kind of disappeared. It's like, I'm off to do other things. He didn't reveal what those other things were. And in the interim, while he moved away, the various things happened. There was Gavin Andresen was kind of his admin rights to the Bitcoin source code repository were removed. That he was seen as Satoshi's. In fact, Satoshi nominated him as the person to look after the code when he was gone. But his access was revoked, and his access was revoked for claiming that Craig Wright was Satoshi, and the others didn't agree, and so they locked him out the repository. And since then, what's happened is there's been various proposals to change Bitcoin. There's also been various initiatives to remove things that they thought were unsafe, various opcodes. So over time, Bitcoin has changed. Initially, just removing some of these opcodes because people didn't think they were valid or they were safe. And these things were kind of accepted as well. Maybe they aren't safe, maybe they're not. And then around 2017, what happens? We got into a bit of a scaling war, a debate where there was two sides of the argument. There was the argument that people were saying we don't want to scale Bitcoin. We want the blocks to be 1 meg every 10 minutes for reasons of security. As a computer scientist, none of this makes sense to me, by the way. So, but that was the reasoning. And the reason I'm on the big blocker side is because as a computer scientist, all of the technical reasons for scaling the blocks were sound and made sense. But you had these other guys over here who are wanting to keep things super small, with the transaction fees obviously would then go up. And the reason was they wanted it to run on Raspberry Pis and small devices effectively, and have these small devices able to validate the blockchain. But what they didn't understand is SPV, which is simple payment verification, which means you don't have to download the blockchain onto a Raspberry Pi in order to validate it. There's ways and means using block headers and Merkle paths to validate whether a transaction is accurately stored in the blockchain. It doesn't require you to store the history of the blockchain in order to do that. In fact, all you need is the headers of the blockchain, and that's a small amount of data every year. I think it's 4.2 megs of data every year. That would be downloaded to your device, and then with those block headers, you can validate whether your transaction is legit or not. Anyway, so there was these two scales. There was these two teams effectively with two different ideas about what blockchain was. I'm not sure where it was instigated from. I joined in the middle of it. I was kind of a crypto guy who stumbled upon this argument that was happening in Twitter. And for me, anyway, I could see both sides of the arguments. The only one that made sense to me was the big block. Let's scale Bitcoin. Let's make it useful for the world argument, rather than it being this small, exclusive thing, which Bitcoin has become now. Whereas a small number of holders, if you want to buy some Bitcoin, you're buying a tiny little fraction, and it's effectively, to me, what I think BTC is a Ponzi scheme. And I can't see beyond seeing it as a Ponzi scheme myself. But that's because I've thought it all through, and really, what I think what's happened is the financial institutions have recognized the threat that Bitcoin is bringing, and they chose to kind of kneecap it. And that's what BTC is. It's a kneecapped, it's a crippled version of Bitcoin that the public has been pushed. To get away from that.
But they managed to be the shinier object.
Yeah, well, they made it the shiny object. They talked, bit gold and all of that jazz, and in actual fact, the value of it is also pumped quite dramatically. And again, that's because there's been a lot of propaganda headed the other way. Calling Craig Wright a fraud, calling BESV a fraudulent chain. It's none of those things. Craig Wright may well be Satoshi. We'll leave that for the laws and judges to decide. I certainly think he is, just based on the knowledge that he's divulged over the years that I've been able to verify and go, okay, that makes a lot of sense. This guy really knows what he's talking about. But I'm not 100% sure, so I couldn't say for sure until something happens that verifies that.
So, Craig, let's add Evan to the call and Nino to the call.
Yeah.
And for the students, those who are listening and those who are watching, let's call simple, and let's not call what's not simple complicated. Let's follow the facts, okay? So, Evan, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Nino, are you on? So, Evan, you have personally been involved in the writing of the BSV syllabus. So, the Bitcoin white paper does not at any point discuss hodling.
Oh, no, definitely not. Right. In the title, it's quite clear that it's an electronic cash system, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system.
Exactly. So which of the protocols is doing exactly that? Because if that's what in the white paper, but then again, is the white paper gospel? Is it not supposed to mutate? Is it supposed to be nice?
The white paper is sort of the defining rules of what is Bitcoin, right? That's like, so if you change the rules, you're not playing the game anymore. My analogy is if we're playing, soccer, or in Europe and maybe in parts of Africa, they say football. I don't know what they say in the Caribbean. But if we're playing soccer and I decide I'm going to start picking up the ball and throwing it into the net, are we still playing soccer? Right? By changing the rules, we're changing the nature of the game. And so by defining ourselves still as that, as something that we're not, then, that's passing off, right? So if you are aware of a recent legal case that was filed by Craig that against various businesses in the sort of the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Tulip trading.
Right. Yeah, about passing off, right? That BTC is claiming to be or that businesses are claiming that BTC is Bitcoin. Now, you got to remember who really defines what is Bitcoin. And I mean, okay, sorry, I shouldn't say really defines, because truly defines is the white paper. But, in the sort of public space, who is saying what is what? and it's the exchanges, right? The exchanges are the ones that are controlling the names that these tokens are being traded under, right? So essentially, it's a collusion among exchanges to sell something as something else when it's not, right? They're selling BTC as Bitcoin. Okay, that's, maybe this is just coming again from my knowledge and experience through this entire, history of Bitcoin, right? So, effectively, there is a case here that, there is a sort of fraud that is being perpetrated by exchanges on its customers. And if you look at, a lot, maybe some of these exchanges don't know, right? Like they're not like complicit in it, uh, in the sense of they are like actively, okay, let's do this. But some definitely are, right?
Yeah.
And the rest just kind of follow along. And you got to remember that a lot of these exchanges, I mean, the most powerful ones, they are effectively unregulated. They're operating a lot of cases offshore, and maybe that's changed a little bit in the past years or so. But they come from very, very shady pasts.
Yeah.
With various sort of early financial mismanagements and potential theft from their customers. So there's definitely a lot of you have to be quite aware that this space is a new world in effect, right? And so there's a, a and people can be easily misled because they don't have the information from the beginning, right? Like, and it is very much hard to get, because there's just so much information out there to get information that is accurate. So that's why it really comes down to investigating, and not necessarily getting caught up, I feel, in the whole the okay, like, is BSV real or not based on whether Craig is Satoshi or not, because that to me is almost like a way of, again, of kind of keeping BSV from the public.
Sorry.
I think really what you should look at is the technological merits. What is it, doing? What is it capable of doing? And really the fact that it is ultimately that groundbreaking, invention that Satoshi Nakamoto put forth in the white paper, right? Like, that changes everything. That is the fundamental, that's, to me, like, there is nothing more incredible that has been invented in the 20th century. I mean, the internet only is an enabler for what this, this few, and to be honest, blockchain, BSV particularly, in my mind, because of its scalability, are really that sort of, once you put everything together, once you have that full meta net, so to speak, I mean, that is the truly probably the greatest, combined creation for humanity. It will change everything. It will be an amazing renaissance of and propel us far into a better world. So yeah, no doubt there's sorry.
No, I just want to just say one thing. So for me, as a consumer, right? So I'm not a developer. I'm an entrepreneur. I I have a platform that somebody else built for me. You know, I hash these ideas around with people, and we continue to grow it. So for me, I don't even look at BSV necessarily as, or the creators, or you know, I don't have a leg in that race. I don't have a horse in that race at all. For me, it's like, you know, George Washington, right? Um, his face is on the dollar bill, but he was a terrible man. I think most people would agree. But that doesn't change the fact that I still spend the $100 bill. So for me, strictly as a consumer, BSV, while it is a little more, I wouldn't say centralized, but I would feel that there is a little more control from InChain and Dr. Craig Wright. They do have some amount of control over the network, but not so much in the fact that I can't use the dollar bill. You know
But
what I mean?
hold up. What's stopping BSV from going to the masses? Because, okay, first of all, BTC, there's barriers to entry. If you want to buy a full Bitcoin, you better have around 60,000 US dollars to get a full Bitcoin. So it's not peer-to-peer. It's not for the ordinary Joe.
No,
Let's
it's not.
agree on that, okay?
Oh, of course. Absolutely.
And
No,
in terms of rug pulls and pig butchering scams and all that, it's all those protocols are facing similar problems.
correct.
So this aspect of exchange of value, peer-to-peer exchange of value. In Kenya, we have something called M-Pesa, okay? And people exchange, it started off people exchanging minutes and all that, blah, 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 but people are trading. So is there a way that you can use BSV without even knowing you're using BSV? Like you're using USSD codes, somebody in the village, rural parts can be sending USSD codes and accessing tokens without even knowing the underlying technology and behind the whole thing.
Yes,
I was going to
absolutely.
say, yeah, ideally you want to hide the technology as much as possible. People shouldn't really have to understand or know that it's Bitcoin or to use some payment technology. It should
So
just
right
be,
now, yeah, we're on a Zoom call. I don't know what their servers are based on. I don't know what
yeah,
technologies they're running. I don't know what protocols they use to encrypt, to communicate. I mean, I know what they use to encrypt, but that's just because that's my background. But most people don't, like a normal user wouldn't. So yeah, we even have a platform, Fifth to Work. We actually have an online marketplace that runs on BSV. But most people think they're just transacting in US dollar, which is why we have such low fees to move money around and products around. But it's actually BSV that runs it. But all of our markings, all of our transactions, they're marked US dollar.
Right. And we have, so in this group, and anybody who wants to raise their hand or turn on their mic to ask questions, please speak, because we know we have people at different stages of their career and knowledge of Web3 in our cohort, okay? But Craig, my question to you is, how do the no-code platforms work? For instance, one of our partners, HQ NFTs, who are going to be here next week, they mint NFTs on no code basis. You don't have to know Solidity. You don't have to know anything. It's like using Canva. So how do those platforms work? And for people here who want to get into such things, how could you point them to that direction as well? Because it's sounding so dense and mathematical and, coding and
yeah,
all that. So it's kind of off-putting for some people.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there's ways and means. I mean, we can simplify a lot of stuff. So I was just going to show you dagda.app. Is my screen still sharing? I imagine it is. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah. So Dagda is, we were talking about the MetaNet earlier on. So Dagda is an API that kind of simplifies the creation of MetaNet nodes on the BSV blockchain. And so you can see we can create authorities and provide a profile for the authority. We can create root nodes. And it's an API call, and all of the Bitcoin stuff is abstracted away from you. So it makes the creation of these sort of things simple. So imagine I don't know about these no-code solutions too much, but I imagine they've simplified a lot of the necessary processes in order to create an NFT, and they're just hiding that process from you by creating some abstraction that you drag onto a canvas and fill out a little form that specifies some of the details of the NFT that you want, and it generates you said NFT. So these kind of things are achievable with BSV. I don't think MD's done a no-code solution yet, as far as I know. But there's ways and means of simplifying very complex things. As I said, it's all about abstracting these things away. Going back to the word abstraction again, and simplifying what is underneath quite complex.
Thanks, Craig. Anybody in class who want to ask a question? I'm reading messages. Fasui, you want to express your train of thought on the mic, please?
Yeah, good evening. I'm just looking at Nino's message on the marketplace on BSV. I think some years ago we saw some market, and later on I don't think those things are really functional at the moment. So when I saw Nino's message about people trying to work on that, I think it's a very nice idea. I think that's one of my contribution. And secondly, this is a question. This no code, using no code, does it has any implication on the long run? For so many people that has no knowledge about coding, if I should use a no code application to build a system or an infrastructure, does it have an effect on the long run? Thank you.
I would say
Craig,
yes.
you want to take that, and then Jason has really been making some very interesting comments in the chat. I think, Jason, you deserve the mic so that you also share your train of thought with us. So, Craig, please answer that question.
Yeah. I would say the potential pitfall of relying too much on no-code solutions is that they can be quite restrictive, and so you can only accomplish what the no-code solution lets you accomplish. Whereas, if you were to code things from scratch, you've got the full range of your imagination open to you, and you're not limited by the software that's presented to you. That would be the thing. I think no-code solutions could be good for getting basic solutions up and running fast, but quite often you find that they don't satisfy all the requirements because they're missing some key aspects that are quite custom to your business or to your idea or to whatever it is that can't be accomplished in the simple playground that the no-code solution provides.
Right. Thanks, Craig. I see a hand up. Abdul Jabbar, your hand is up. Oh, and Jason, I put you on the spot as well. If you're ready to take the mic. Whoever's ready to take the mic.
Please, I missed my line of thought. Let me get back to you on that, please.
Okay, that's fine, Abdul Jabbar.
Right.
Okay. And I know there's plenty of you guys. Don't be shy. This is a knowledge exchange, basically. I know there's plenty of you. I read all your applications, like 400 applications plus. And I know some of you have advanced knowledge in this as well. So if you just want to share your train of thought, like it's the only way others can learn. And, and it's the only way Craig could also share his knowledge with us if you ask something that's, you probably thought about. Oh, Jason is having mic issues. Need to go to mobile phone. That's fine. Okay. Anybody else? Guys, we have 15 minutes to go. So literally, this is the graveyard shift. So, let's finish this.
Yeah,
Bala.
I think
Sorry,
Can you hear me?
just 1 second, Jason. Bala,
Okay.
just go on the YouTube. The audio and video are both there and they're nicely clear, okay? Jason, back to you. Jason. Oh, wow.
Sorry about that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm on two devices, so I was trying to lower the volume on one.
Okay.
So when I hear about using no code or BSV for creating online shops, I'm thinking of how it can assist persons in the craft industries, not only to facilitate creating designs and selling the designs, but also creating an online educational portal to share their ideas, to register, and also to assist in logistics. Because in my country, a lot of persons who do this, they don't have bank accounts, they don't have websites, so they rely heavily on cash and social media. So this is something I'm very interested in exploring.
Jason, you're from St. Lucia, yeah? Let me tell you, St. Lucia is so anti-blockchain, and this is TMI, but I was creating an account for one of my clients, and it just mentioned blockchain. The bank refused to even talk to us again. You know, like St. Lucia is horrible when it comes to such things. So, Abdul Jabbar, you've gotten your train of thought back. Please, by all means, grab the mic.
Yeah, I did. When we were off praying, Nino discussed about he discussed about what we could do to earn some things that we could develop on the BSV blockchain. And then my thought on property development, metaverse, I was thinking, can I have a platform where I have a sofa in my room and then sell it on the blockchain? And then if there is a way, if it goes on selling, I can get something out of that transaction or something like that. Okay.
Yeah, like a resale value. So effectively, you create a contract where the first person will purchase the sofa, let's say $200. The next person, they might purchase your sofa for $125, but you get a kickback of 5% of that secondary purchase. Something like that.
Yeah. You're getting it right.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, so you can build in
The
these.
decentralization organization.
Yeah, so you can encode your tokens to have specific rules. That and it might not even be the token that has the rules. It might be your web platform itself that specifies, if this is getting sold a second time, then let's charge X amount. So there's multiple ways to do it. You can either do it within the token itself. So the token protocol itself demands that somebody spends 5% directly to you, but also pays for the token, which in the token being the sofa.
Can I come
So
in?
yeah.
So what would be the legal implication of that? Did I?
You'd have to pay tax.
Terms and conditions. Yeah.
Yo, guys, there's a really interesting question from Camila. Camila is really bringing the heat today, She started off a bit slow, but she's really bringing the fire. So Camila is asking, can BSV also be an investment? Just hold up the person asking a question. Just give me 1 second. Can BSV also be an investment because she needs it to be a store of value to protect her income from crazy inflation? So this kind of, and Evan, I need you back on this. You and Nino, I need you guys back in on this because so BSV or Bitcoin, or is it playing the as because what's money? Money is a store of value, it's a unit of account and something else. It has like
medium of exchange. Yeah.
So does BSV, does it embody this characteristic?
Well, not necessarily, right? I mean, in some ways, But yeah, it's not money yet, right? Um, and I think it's still obviously the amount of activity. So I don't want to tell anybody whether they should invest in anything or not, right? Because maybe you will make a bunch of money if you invest in something, right? Or maybe you won't. But I think if you're looking at BSV, you have to kind of understand that it is look at the environment. You have to be realistic. I mean, in all blockchains, the usage is still very low for real world usage, right? So effectively, the value of all blockchains is still highly speculative, which is not a very good thing if you're looking to secure your the value over time, right? Like if you're looking to maybe gamble, then in playing around in the blockchain market is that but you shouldn't look at maybe it as a way, oh, I'm gonna protect myself from inflation or anything else. And but I like everything is very it could change in a day, right? Like again, most of the markets are held up by a few perhaps illegal or acting illegally exchanges that if the US government decided to shut them down, or that could have massive impacts on the crypto markets. And there's a number of untold things that could happen at any moment, really, that so I don't want to, but that doesn't mean also that people haven't made a lot of money playing the speculation game. And I guess you got to figure out for yourself what you want to do. But I think can BSV be money is a question. And the likely trajectory in sort of this futurology quest is that we will see some sort of fiat currency, maybe even it's a gold backed currency of some sort, or some sort of currency that would be tokenized on the blockchain, a fully scalable blockchain, and that would provide this is at least the what the governments are wanting, right? And they would have that currency flying around the internet, and maybe governments would compete to a degree on what freedoms and utilities they allow their fiat currency to have. And then logically we could then extend that future into, well, if people are using this technology, whether it's BSV or whatever, fully scalable, fully utilitarian blockchain, to send these representations of government printed money or whatever, then why not just use the underlying technological asset itself, right? Which would be the coin. Right. So we could theoretically predict in the future that yes, now will that actually occur? BSV has a lot of obstacles still to overcome to be able to achieve that. Right. And or any blockchain, really. And so I think if you're looking to back a horse, you would want to look at a horse that would, you know, have the potential in this race, at least, to be able to scale to immense levels, transact very cheaply, and do all the things as much as possible. But who knows, right? Like it's not like a perfectly clear future. There's all kinds of different actors. We've seen, how things have been so far, and how, Bitcoin or BSV has been received
Right.
by the sort of institutional powers and whatnot. And now, it's kind of in the midst of a sort of, I don't know, an interesting time, a very pivotal moment, actually,
Right.
I think. So, that's the reality. And I wouldn't suggest that anybody invest, any
Right.
real money into
Okay.
BSV, but rather, if
Evan,
you were going to use it, build a business with it,
okay.
earn it,
Evan,
maybe,
because of time, I have
Yeah.
one last question, and this goes out to the three of you as well. And then Nino, I don't think we'll be able to take the students through the assessment today because of time. You want to do that tomorrow? Because
Oh
it's
no, it'll be another day because we still have to take the transcripts and actually build it out. There wouldn't be anything to show them. We'll show them on the last day when we're actually about to have them run through the exam. It'll be the first person and then the first portion, and then we'll leave the exam open over the weekend so that they can actually
okay.
complete the
Okay,
weekend.
that's fine. And then they get their rewards and
Yes,
tokens. They'll be happy for that.
exactly.
Now, I'm taking you back to the forks, okay? So, in terms of forks, there's two very popular forks. There's the BTC fork, which we've discussed, and then there's the DAO instance with the Ethereum fork. Now, Evan, you mentioned something very interesting, which is playing by the rules.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
we've never come to a solid answer when it comes to this question. So if code is low,
Oh, it's not.
so the Ethereum instance, what happened with the smart contracts? That was according to code, that was okay, wasn't it? But in terms of
Oh,
real
it's
world, real
oh,
world
it,
application, yeah.
yeah. It's unbelievable.
Do you just want to take
Um,
do you just want to go a few steps back so that some of the
Yeah,
students who
I
don't know
mean,
what
and
happened understand?
I don't have a whole lot of the details, but I think if you can even go back to the switch for Ethereum from proof of work to proof of stake, I think that is, I'm not a lawyer, but to me, uh, I think I'm surprised there wasn't a bunch of miners suing the Ethereum Foundation. Because I mean, that's quite a drastic, protocol change that I would think have a lot of these miners who had all this mining equipment that they could no longer mine Ethereum with, lost, I would assume, quite a bit of money. Because you're having businesses build on this protocol, and whenever you change the protocol, you really are undermining a lot of those businesses. And so there's a certain like problem there that exists within an unlocked protocol, right? That's why following the rules, which is the protocol, and maintaining the protocol, right? So not just, like, oh, okay, now we're going to do something else. And all these people who were following the rules all of a sudden lose a bunch of money because you decided to change the rules. That's kind of, to me, not the right way to go about building the future of business.
Right.
And so, that's, if we go back to, like, forks and the whole fork with. Sorry, I think maybe you can mute everybody really
Yeah,
quick
let me
there.
mute everybody and then you
Thank
put yourself back on,
Awesome.
Michael. Okay, Evan, put yourself back on.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I think when there was this whole sort of Bitcoin fork occurring, that it had taken place in the midst of this scaling debate to raise the block size. And there was a lot that was done to effectively prevent that from happening, as Craig had mentioned. And but one of the things that people don't realize is that BCH had yes, BCH forked off of Bitcoin first, in effect, but as shortly after, BTC also forked. And although it wasn't a hard fork, it's still a fork. It's a soft fork, which is actually worse because you can't you can't go backwards. You cannot not backwards in the sense of on the blockchain, but you can't revert back to the previous so essentially that soft fork SegWit means that now they can't, you can't add the witness back to the transaction, the witness data back to the transactions in BTC.
Right.
It's impossible.
Right.
To go back, to revert that change. And so, both there is, effectively in this, if you look at this, there is no, continuation, and I mean, well, BCH continued, so that is the continuation, but it is, of course, a hard fork of Bitcoin. So the continuation of the Bitcoin protocol was through hard fork, and so that in effect BCH became Bitcoin based on the protocol and the set forth in the Bitcoin white paper, but not in the eyes of the exchanges, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Evan.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, it's the exchanges that dictated what the public thought was Bitcoin, but in actual fact, the Bitcoin protocol kind of it was BTC that forked away by demanding to make changes to the protocol. So they wanted to implement SegWit, and SegWit is a clear change to what is Bitcoin. The point that you implement SegWit, you're completely moving away from the original idea of the Bitcoin protocol. So to me, it was actually BTC that forked.
The
narrative that was driven forward was the other way around. It was BCH was forking, and BTC was a continuation.
When you talk about
of the protocol.
actual protocol, yes, the continuation of the protocol was right. I think I guess there should be a sort of the difference between the chain and the protocol, right? So the BCH chain forked off, but that was the Bitcoin protocol, and then SegWit stunted. Like as soon as that happened, then they stunted BTC.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's kind of, I know, trust me, it was never, if it was easy, if it was simple, then yeah, everything, we wouldn't be in this situation, right? Like, but and the world, I think we all know, we're all probably mostly adults here, we all know usually the simple way never happens, right? Like especially when it comes to such big things like Bitcoin. But yeah, it's fascinating. And of course, the same thing happened with BCH, right? They wanted to change the transaction ordering in the blocks. They wanted to do all these different things, and they wanted to effectively not continue the scaling of making larger blocks. And so, in the next instance, there was a hash war, and BSV emerged as the continuation of the Bitcoin protocol.
Right. So, guys, that has to be the long stop for this evening.
Craig, you're sharing your screen still.
Yeah, no, I'm just logging into the Discord. Just feel free.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
So, Nino, you want to wrap it up and just tell people about the Discord and what you envision with the Discord?
Yeah, so let me actually go to the Discord. It was Gabby had actually asked me to do this and I had forgotten. So let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. Let me only the host can share the screen.
Wait, let me make you the co-host as well.
Thank you, sir.
Right, there you go.
All right, so let me share the screen. Thank you, Craig. Now, what I want to show you is very, very simple.
Nino,
you
your
see my screen?
sharing. You're not sharing.
It should be now. Do you wish to continue? Yes. You should be able to see it, correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, so I've got the Discord up. I'm going to go over here to the public space, right? And you should be able to, and now it's not working. Okay. How do I add a course? It used to give me a option to create. There we go. You just long hold it for me because I'm on a tablet. And then you come down here to create a channel. And this could be any channel you want. No long ting. It doesn't allow capitals. But I'm just going to name this a no long ting after class, after party, after party. It can be anything you want it to be, right? It's going to be a public channel. So I'm just going to create it. Well, now that should pop up down here. After party. It's a voice channel, right? So people can go there and they can start communicating. If you want to keep talking,
Hold up.
you
Do
can
you
join
want to
that and
share?
keep
Sorry,
talking.
sorry to cut you off. Do you want to share a fresh invite and then click on that thing to say, don't let this link expire? Because I think the one you
Where is
shared
it?
is now expired.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
So it does it give me the option to never? It does. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Share link, copy. All right. I'll
So
drop it in the
paste it
Zoom meeting.
on here and on the WhatsApp as well, so that they can also join from the WhatsApp.
There you go, everyone. Please, you should all be able to share it. So if someone else, I mean, if Ryan, if you can add it, I don't have my phone linked to the.
Okay, I'm gonna
my
send
Discord.
it to my email and then I'll share it to the WhatsApp.
Beautiful. Hey, so yeah, the intent of this space is because of lessons learned from previous cohorts, right? So we would have these beautiful courses we would go through and we'd run you through this developer course and they'd be like, okay, have a good life. And there was no follow-up. There was no continuation. There was no development. There was no coaching. There was no mentorship. There was no networking. It was just the course was over. So in order to address that, we've created this Discord so that people can come together, they can create their own spaces, they can collaborate. And this is actually where you will make and split up into different groups for the Ideathon, where you are going to be finding people who don't do what you can. So for me, I'm an idea person. I'm not a developer. I need to find the Craigs that are in this community, and I need to grab onto them and sell them my idea so that they want to develop my plan. That's what you're going to be doing. A little bit of what's the word? Competition, but hopefully not. This is a collaboration. A developer doesn't have to work with one idea. So as you don't expect to be able to do it all. You're not going to be able to develop. You're not going to know the laws. You're not going to be able to do security by yourself. You're not going to be able to market yourself and sell your platform to people. You need a bunch of different people on your team to develop these ideas. That's what this space is for. And it is not restricted to people in this group. It is for everybody. So please create groups by yourself, create, collaborate, do whatever you need to do, break up into your own groups however you want. I just created these little example ones, Nigeria, Caribbean entrepreneurs. You know, it's just a space for you to ask questions and talk amongst yourselves, get some follow-up. I answered some questions that were brought up from this Discord today in the live session. So that's just the intent of this Discord. All right. Thank you, Brian.
Oh, Nino, about the people, let's say like majority in Nigeria, if they could meet around like a real life event as well.
Yeah,
I'm in
definitely.
discussions with some partners who could like support some of those local groups as well. It hasn't materialized yet. We are still in negotiations. So just be a bit patient. But start off with the Discord, and then when you start doing in real life events, and this applies to the Caribbean as well, with Crypto Mondays Caribbean, we are really trying to be, to bring people together to bring actual change. I saw a question. Who has a question? Guys, we really have to wrap it up. Could you just ask the questions in the Discord, please? And you have Craig in there. If you need any technical support, Craig is in there. Evan is in there. Nino is in there. So please.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So
thank you, Craig.
So everybody, I'm so happy you came. And tomorrow we are discussing NFTs. So come in early. Don't wait for the next person to come in so that you come in. Like, this knowledge is for you. You could potentially be the person we're helping to build an actual startup next year during phase 2 of NLT, which is going to be an actual hackathon in a Caribbean country, which we'll discuss towards the end of this course. So just focus on your energy, focus on teamwork and building togetherness. So for the success of everybody, So thank you for your time. I'll let you guys go. We'll see you tomorrow. Okay? Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.
Thank you.